Hello, wonderful humans, and welcome back. And I'm so pleased to be back. I know it's been a month since my last video. I'm very, very aware. I hope you stick with me while I deal with life, but I'm almost there. I have a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe, left to get my master's minor thesis finished. And then I can actually start reading books that I really want to read and watching things that I really want to watch. But in the meantime, I've taken time out of my busy studying schedule and I have finally watched the first 4 episodes of Wheel of Time. I didn't actually manage to watch the first episode until after episode 4 had come out. So I've actually been really avoiding social media, YouTube, everything. I have not watched anything. I've read tiny snippets. I saw that it's doing decently in the reviews, but I haven't watched any yet because I wanted to get my thoughts out there before I was influenced by other people's opinions about it. So this is my thoughts on Wheel of Time season 1, starting with episode 1, Leave Taking, today. Now, fair warning that it's going to be full of spoilers, I think, for the books. So if you haven't been reading the books, if you've just watched the TV series, I've only read the first 3 books and 6 chapters of book 4. I'm getting there, everyone. But that means that at times I might talk about things that I've noticed in relation to the first 3 books. But I don't know where it goes after that, so it's not going to be that full of spoilers just in general, so maybe this is a good place to be. Today, as I said, talking about Wheel of Time, as I do the TV series, as I do with the books, I read a chapter with the book and then I take notes. I didn't want to watch a scene and then pause the videos and take notes, so that would have ruined my viewing experience. So I've watched the entire episode through and then sat down with my this is my A4 notebook. It's a Disney themed. I like Disney. Can you tell? I've got my... Anyway, so I've got this, it's an A4 size, and I've just written as much as I wanted to after I finished watching the episode. After watching episode 1, I think I sat down and wrote for an hour and a half. So that's 6 pages of my thoughts. And I'm going to just share them with you today. So Leave Taking was the first episode, and this, wow, like this episode broke me a little bit. I don't think I've ever watched the first episode of a TV series and been so invested in the characters. Maybe because I've read the books, but they did a very, very good job, I think, of setting the characters up as people we care about. And then I was in tears. There was a lot of tears shed, especially for the second half of this, for a variety of reasons. Especially for Perrin. Wow, what they've done to Perrin. Wow. Anyway, I'll get to that, but it was traumatic. I found it really traumatic for myself as a viewer. And I can only imagine. I loved watching, I'm not going to use the actor's name, so I apologize. I may try and remember to do that for episode 2. But Perrin, his facial expressions were just incredible. They needed someone who could convey that without using lots of words for this character, and I think they did a really good job at choosing an actor who could portray how emotionally broken he is right from very early on. And anyway, I'll get to that because I know I write about that later. So it brought to life the trauma they all went through on Beltane. Not just Rand, like in the books. I think when I read it, I knew that it was a traumatic experience for all of them in a way. And I use that word trauma a lot when writing this, I know. But I know that this event impacted all of them. The battle or the attack from the Trollocs in the books. But because we're seeing things through Rand's point of view in the books, and through his filter, and a slightly self-obsessed filter, I don't think you realise, or I didn't anyway, exactly how much of an impact this had. It probably also helps that it was written more of an adventure story as they left, and they were all a little bit happier to go because there hadn't been none of their families in the books had died, other than Rand dealing with the fact that Tam wasn't better yet. He hadn't really fully woken up yet. Anyway, so I don't think these changes are a bad thing, especially this idea of us seeing things through different points of view and not just focusing on the one point of view is going to be a huge difference for how we experience the story. And I don't think people maybe had really thought about what that would mean, and I love it. I just love it. The point of view and the unreliable narrator issues from the book aren't going to be as obvious because we're seeing the bigger picture and not through their lens, which I don't think is a bad thing, just different. And I think the book offers us one thing and the series offers us a very different thing, and I like that about it. It means we will see scenes like Beltane, the attack in the village, that we only heard about as in the aftermath in the books. And honestly, these events was more than anything I could have imagined. I think we got a really, really great view of the attack on Tam and Rand. But just, I wasn't expecting it to be so horrific and to have so many Trollocs and all those kind of things. It was horrific in so many ways, and definitely will explain a lot of future choices and the moods of the characters and the events that happen to the Tavern. I'm loving the different pronunciations, and I'm still sticking with what I'm going with. But the things that they experience as they go, I think, will be really impacted by the events in this scene, and the changes that were made. Oh wow, the changes that were made. Perrin and Matt being the biggest, seem to have the biggest changes, other than the age thing. That was big, but not that big. Anyway, I think I really need to make it super clear that I loved this, and yes, I probably don't have the same emotional attachment to the Wheel of Time that someone has had if they've been reading since the beginning. So I take that, and I understand that, and I don't know if they've made a change in the episode that is going to have a huge impact on the story down the track. So I don't know, but I absolutely loved this episode, and I thought it was an awesome way to start. So yes, I'm gonna gush. So please forgive me. I don't always, but this one, I thought a few issues here and there and things I wish had happened, or am super intrigued to see how this will affect the characters and events down the track. But generally, I loved it, and I'm still emotionally dealing with the trauma. Even now, after watching the next few episodes, I'm still sitting there going, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. So anyway, I feel like the final scene in this episode, where Moraine is telling them that they need to go with her, I feel that it was shortened, and I am expecting there to be an extended version, a deleted scene almost, of this scene of Moraine getting the four of them to leave with her, and that I feel that there was a scene missing here, and I get it was a timing thing, it wasn't absolutely necessary, but that the villagers being told they have to leave and then they're gone, and there's none of that farewell, none of that. There's a really brief glimpse of it. I understand why they've done it timing wise, but I think this is probably the biggest thing that I had, that didn't play into that, which I think would have made a bigger impact down the track when they all want to go home. They are all just like, I want to go home, in the books all the time. Not all of them, but I think it would have made it a little bit better, for a variety of reasons, but timing wise for the episode, it was the thing that could get cut. So I understand, and I'll accept it. I think this is also one of the places that a Gwen's role as Tavern makes the most sense. Otherwise, I can't actually imagine her parents in this situation allowing her to leave like she did in the book, because she snuck away, I think. She left there without invite or permission. So she wasn't invited to go with them in the book, and she definitely didn't ask for permission to leave. She just left with them. And the way that they left, she needed to be deferred. There needed to be a really strong reason for her to go with Moraine. Otherwise, I don't think that she would have been able to join them, or she would have had to have snuck away later or something. The way that it was done. This is the first instance that it makes the most sense that Egwene has been classified as Tavern and a possible Dragon Reborn candidate. I also feel there was an interaction missing between Fane and Rand, given the future events in the book. Whether they go in that direction, they might go in a slightly different direction. It's entirely possible, given other things. I think that's entirely possible. But maybe this will shift or it will resolve itself in future episodes, but I just feel that was probably something else that I was expecting. But instead, we got the interaction between Fane and Matt. And I think that's when I say I wonder whether they've shifted things a little bit. I think given what happens in other episodes, which I'll get to at other times, I wonder whether they've shifted the focus from Rand to Matt because of the connection there. Does that make sense to you? I wonder, and I will understand it, but I did expect an interaction of some sort. There was just nothing. So I don't have much to say about Moraine and Lan for this episode, other than that they were incredible. I think they've been really well cast. They've got a really great chemistry together. And I loved watching them fight together. That synchronicity is exactly the level of coordination I had hoped for. But also I loved that, yes, they were coordinated, but they were also doing their own thing, which is how she was able to be injured, because they were dealing with their own thing. It wasn't like they have to fight together. They do fight on their own, and I thought that was very, very well done. The bath scene was a little unexpected. But I think it serves a few purposes, so I'm not objecting to it. I can understand why it happened, but there was a few, I can make it make sense. Their relationship or bond makes them incredibly close, so it's helping new people see that automatically, while playing into that false idea of the bond equaling a romantic or sexual relationship. I think that's a really nice little misdirect, I suppose. I still wouldn't have probably gone about it in this situation, but watching it, it was quite platonic. I think you could read into it a sexual tension, but I think it was quite a platonic, playful relationship. I liked the little bits of humour that we see between Moraine and Lan, when Lan says it's not as warm as it could be or whatever, and then he repeats that, and then Moraine uses or heats it up. Yeah, so there's not that romantic tension between the two, but a real playfulness, which I quite like. It also makes sense, the bath thing, for Lan to do this, giving the co-ed bathing, and it's normal where he grew up, and Moraine would have has travelled, so she would be a part of that. I suppose one thing that doesn't make sense though, that the inn would have such a large tub designed for more than one person, given they're quite a prudish, they're prudish, or at least the villagers in the books appear prudish, in regards to this kind of thing, bathing with members of the opposite sex. If the boys' reaction in the book in Faldara about the bathing customs are any indication, they are quite prudish and quite naive and innocent in regards to these kind of things. But the TV series has gone out of its way to show that they're going for a more adult approach than the books have. This scene plus the Egwene Rand scene where they were supposed to be doing the dishes, I thought, yeah, I can understand they're trying to make this a little bit more adult, but yeah, I've lost my train of thought there. But yes, the bathtub, I get it. I think for some reasons it makes a lot of sense. For others though, it's a cultural change, I think, for the village, for the inn to have had a tub of that size. I don't know. I question that. But it's not a big deal. It was just something that I was like, oh, okay, it's interesting. I really enjoyed the scene between Moraine and Nynaeve. I thought this was really lovely. It gave Nynaeve a better reason, in my opinion anyway, for holding her grudge against the Aes Sedai. That's one thing that has bothered me in the books. I think you would have picked that up if you've watched those videos. I never felt there was enough reason for her to continue feeling the way that she did towards Moraine in particular. Moraine was proving time and time again that she was actually doing what she could to save them. I know that there was things that she was withholding and all that. Given what we know about her and Moraine in the books and all that kind of stuff, it never made sense that she'd have this really strong grudge against her just because she blamed Moraine for taking the villagers away from the village. It didn't make sense. This makes sense, and I can understand it a whole lot more. Anyway, I don't think that I'm explaining that as well, but I think this was just that necessary little bit of backstory motivation that Nynaeve needed, the way that her mentor was treated. This is a much better motivation to prove they're elitist snobs or something like that. And I think, yeah, really, really nice. I won't be surprised if she learns more about her mentor's encounter with the tower in later episodes or seasons that make her rethink some of her deeper beliefs. Maybe there was more to the story than she realised, and maybe not. Maybe it won't change anything at all. But I just think that there could be more there that she could explore. Or maybe it'll just be a passing thing when she gets to the tower. Someone will remember, or not, and then that might feed into her hatred of the Aes Sedai, that her mentor wasn't even remembered. So Moraine here also showed respect towards Nynaeve and her role as wisdom and what she was able to do, calling her wise. True character, Nynaeve took offence to everything Moraine said. Even though I think Moraine was actually complimenting her and really meaning it, she took offence to it. And I think that was just very nicely done. It was such a small scene, and yes, I've talked about it a lot, but one of my favourites in the entire episode, especially as it sets up their relationship going forward and even some of Nynaeve's motivations going forward. I think it's very, very well done. Now, I think Egwene is brilliantly cast, and I'm not just saying that because the actress is Australian, although that does help. I believe there are some people against her, like out there, from what I saw before watching the show. Before it began, people were worried about her as Tavern based on the trailers, but I think it was the right move. How had rumours of Fort Tavern reached Moraine, given the isolated nature of the two rivers? That didn't quite make sense, but I think in the books it made a little bit more sense that she was following the trail, knowing that the baby had been born in a certain spot, and she followed the trail and it took her a long time to find it, and that probably made more sense. It was more of a treasure hunt in that sense, whereas this, she just happened to hear a rumour. Anyway, side note. I also like that the show is setting Egwene up from the first moments to be a really important character. She's not, I think in the first book, because we were seeing so much of it through Rand's point of view, she was a little bit of a damsel in distress in his mind, not in her mind. In her mind, she was the heroine of her own adventure, but in his mind and through what we saw, she was a little bit of a tag-along character that was just, something was going to happen. I think I even thought at the end of the first book that Egwene was going to die, so right then and there, and would be a big motivation for Rand going forward. Anyway, how he saw her as who he needed to protect is what I wrote there. So that's what I mean when I say damsel in distress. Rand thought that he had to protect her, and I think this puts them on equal footing right from the start, and I like it. I like it a lot. I think by introducing her this way, also the mystery of the dragon is so much more real. It was fairly obvious in the books from very early on. I don't think that was the mystery as such, but yeah, I think this is really helping to play into that a lot. I did warn you that there'd be spoilers, but most of you have already read them, I'm sure. The scene where she watches Nynaeve get pulled away by a Trolloc is so devastating. I wrote here, more trauma. The first bit of a Gwen's trauma. But wow, that was huge. Look, I knew that we were going to see her at some point, but wow. Wow. These four leave at the end shattered and absolutely broken, not dashing off on an adventure, which the books felt more like, especially for a Gwen, as I said earlier. And speaking of Trollocs, I loved when the women of the village surrounded one of them and all attacked together. That's what the women's circle does. They work together, and it was really well done there. There was a circle and all those kind of things. Great imagery. And that the women and men are equal in this battle for the most part. The women still are physically, for the most part, weaker from what we can see. And the men do take a greater role in things, again, from what we can see. But they are not passive. They're not passive women hiding in the corner. Some are. The women gave as good as the men in protecting their homes and their families, except for Matt's parents, but we'll get to that, I'm sure, at some point. So jumping around a bit here, but I loved the lanterns. I thought everything about the lanterns was just wonderful. Loved that Matt got some for his sisters. Oh, Matt and his sisters. Even if he had to steal the bracelet, I think that was an interesting thing anyway. That's what was implied anyway, that he stole the bracelet. I like a few of the decisions they've made to set Matt up in a certain way. Makes him a lot more likable right from the start. But also that Perrin and Rand, I thought this was beautiful and really cemented the fact that they were friends more than anything else. That Perrin and Rand knew that this was an issue, that Matt had no money, and gave him coins to make sure Matt's sisters didn't miss out on the lanterns. And just how precious. I really enjoyed watching that they did that. And I can imagine that Perrin was the one who instigated that and said, hey, Rand, give me some money. We're going to give it to Matt, as opposed to Rand doing it. I just thought that was absolutely lovely. And then Tam dropping the lore about reincarnation right from the start. Again, really, really important information that I think you gain as you read the book, but it's important information to have, and I think it makes sense. Helps the audience see the dragon reborn thing is connected to the bigger idea of the Wheel of Time as a whole, and it's also a conversation I feel that they've had before, and I can almost imagine Tam and Rand having this conversation or something similar, even when Rand's mother was there, that they have this conversation, and it's like almost a tradition that Tam, or the elder in the family, tells the younger son, Rand in this case, why they light the lanterns. And I just thought it was a really lovely thing. It didn't feel out of place, again, in my mind. Now, I don't have a whole lot to say about Rand. I've actually written almost half about Rand as what I've written about the others. He doesn't stand out from the others much. And I really do love this about the episode. He kills a Trolloc, but so does Perrin. Poor Perrin. Oh, poor Perrin. He misses the major action, and we miss out on the terror he would have felt bringing Tam to the village. The fate on the road in the books and all of that kind of stuff. We don't see that. we do not see them seeing a fade. And I actually understand why, because I think one of my first comments when I read the first book was, how did Rand manage to drag Tam, even with Bella and all of that, how did he manage to drag her through the forest or woods or whatever without the Fade noticing something? They would have been making so much noise, and it just never made sense. So it makes more sense that the Fade wouldn't show up immediately. He's definitely special though, Rand. And is it, I suppose though, is that because of his friends and love interest and who Tam is? Loved the Heron Blade reveal, but I did expect more skill from Tam, although he would have been rusty. He looks different, Rand looks different from everyone else, but it would be easy to assume his mother had red hair. Only a brief clue from Nynaeve, in regard, not from Nynaeve, but regards to Nynaeve, that Moraine is looking for someone not from the village. It was really, really briefly dropped. That's what she's thinking, but I wonder whether that's actually the case or not. All up, I think Rand was introduced in such a way that the reveal of Dragon Reborn won't be as obvious as in the books, although I'd still say with only a bit more information, people would be able to figure it out pretty quickly. I would really love to know, has anyone watched this with someone who hasn't read the books and doesn't know, and have they worked it out as of yet? Because it's hard for people, and I think the show is having to do both of those things. It's having to appeal to the long-term fans, which I'm not a long-term fan, I'm a new fan who hasn't read it all. But it's having to appeal to that long-term fan, give them new things, but staying true to what they demand. But it also needs to give this be a new experience, or an experience that newbies can engage with in a fun and enjoyable manner. And I think this is the mystery element of who the Dragon Reborn is really a good decision, one that I expected to happen in the books more so. So I'd be interested to know how you feel, given most of the people who watch these videos are long-term Wheel of Time fans and have read all the books, unlike me. Do you notice, are you enjoying those little changes and the mysteries, and are you doing what I'm doing and trying to work out what what I would be feeling or what I would be noticing if I'd never read this before? If I knew nothing going in, what would I be noticing? That's kind of what I'm looking at as well, just naturally. So let me know down in the comments if you do the same thing, and how are you feeling about it? Especially Rand, like I just don't think he shone in this episode. There's definitely focus on him, but he didn't shine. Anyway, I thought there were interesting choices. Wow, many interesting choices made for Matt. I'm not sure I love the change to his family. I'm not sure. I'm on the fence about that. But I absolutely adore Matt with his sisters. This definitely sets up why he has to help people in future books. He has had responsibility and pseudo-parenting pushed on him by parents who obviously aren't in a healthy relationship at all. And it does explain a lot about Matt. And I think even his mother's comment, you're going to turn out just as awful, or as awful as your dad is. Oh, my heart breaks so many times when I think about this. For his sisters, for himself, for Matt, as he has to leave his sisters behind. Wow, my heart broke. I think this was a smart choice for TV, I think, The series needs the audience to invest in the characters right from the start. So showing Matt as he is now, a gambler with good luck, or so Perrin mentions that he's got good luck, who is up for a good time at the inn, but who is weighed down with responsibility. I think this is a really, really smart decision on the show's behalf, even though it's different to what we would expect from his backstory. But I think it's important. I actually do think it's an important decision that's been made there. He's not as reckless or as much as a prankster so far, but we caught a glimpse of his roguish smile and his reckless ways, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops, given the dagger will probably appear next episode. You know, if you've been watching any of my other videos, I hated Matt right up until fairly recently. I don't hate him in this TV series. I think he is adorable for many, many ways, many reasons. I think he is the sweetest young man who I would love to see stay happy and be happy forever. So I also think this is all really good. The trauma, that having to leave his sisters behind and his home behind and everything. I think hopefully it won't be as obvious that the dagger is having an impact on him right away. Because the worry for his sisters and the trauma and all those kind of things that causes, they could cause his darkness, the dark moods that he experiences in the book. So I think I like what that opens up the possibilities for. But Matt and his obvious love for his sisters, they better never get hurt, or there will be trouble from me. I really will be absolutely devastated if something happens to these two little girls for Matt, but just because they're so cute and they clearly loved him and he loved them, and oh, it's just adorable. It was absolutely precious, and I think I may love him the most so far of all of the characters, which is so different to my reaction in the book, and I think that's so well done. So well done. I'm not sure how I feel about the big decisions, but I do think they make sense. The big changes around his parents and all that. I do think it makes sense. So, we'll see. I think that they're changes from the book. In all honesty, I haven't seen much of Matt's family yet in the book. I just assume that that's not what his family was like before. He seemed to get along well with them. His mum and dad seemed to be quite involved and normal and loving. And he was just a little bit, I don't think he had that responsibility, and I think that's the big difference. He's got responsibility. And Perrin. I'm going to talk about Perrin. And I don't know that I have the words to talk about Perrin. I'm absolutely heartbroken for Perrin, and I didn't even know Layla what we saw of Layla before and what happened. I was confused when she was introduced. And I knew as soon as she was introduced, I knew something was going to happen to her. Wow, it's still like, they'd already experienced loss together. From what I'm reading into it, I guess she'd had a miscarriage, or they'd been trying for a baby and had had no luck. Or I think that's what was going on there. Either way, they're still dealing with so much, which is why I assume it's a miscarriage, which is why she's withdrawn from the women's circle and is hiding out at the forge and not engaging with the village, because she's dealing with her loss. And Perrin is at a loss as to how to help her deal with that. But they clearly love each other. And honouring Beltane together for their loss was just beautiful as well. Wow. I knew that she wasn't going to survive, and I just didn't expect it to happen the way that it happened. Wow, like what a decision to make. They fought together protecting each other, which was beautiful. And then Perrin thought she was a Trolloc, and I can't say any more about that. Like I can't say anything more about it except that I'm absolutely devastated for him. Absolutely devastated for this fictional character. Wow. I'm not sure about this one. Did they feel they needed to give him a more tragic event to explain him being so quiet and so unsure and so unwilling to commit to being a hero? Or like, I actually don't understand this one. How this will impact his character going forward. I see many possibilities that I think will make sense for him. I think it will make sense, but it's a big change to his backstory. But I can see why. I think particularly by aging them up slightly, it made sense for at least one of the three of them to be married. And again, it made the most sense given Rand and Gwen and Matt not having a lot of money. It made sense that Perrin would be married. But I'm not sure whether I agree with this as a decision that they made. I could go on about this and the repercussions, his reluctance to fight and accept he's worth anything down the track. I absolutely broke down during this scene, especially watching his face as he realised what he had done. It was devastating. Just devastating. Wow. Yeah. A few other things. I think I have one more page of notes to go. So a few other things. The reactions from the Eamon's Field 5 to the Trollocs, to the Trolloc attacks were perfect and felt real to what I know of their characters, regardless of the changes that have been made. None of them knew what was going on or how to react. And this was seen especially well with Gwen when her dance partner was killed first, just sort of standing there looking, going, I don't know what does this mean? Like, it made sense. They would not have had any clue. And even Rand cowering in the corner in the hut, while Tam in their hut, in their house, in the farmhouse, while Tam fought and not doing anything until he realised that Tam was going to die. Gwen staring in disbelief, running and hiding. I think these made sense. Matt, for the character that they'd set up, going and finding his sisters and then protecting them, taking them and hiding and protecting them, and Perrin. I just can't. I am really looking forward to comparing this battle attack with a future one that the villagers participate in, to see their growth. And since this shattered their safe, naive, insular understanding of the world, any future attacks will be handled differently because they're more on guard now. The Beltane dance. It looked awkward. Like, who am I kidding? It looked awkward. I love a dance scene. But this just looked awkward all round. But funnily enough, I actually thought that made sense for the situation. It's not like the villagers would have danced every night, given there was no dancing at the inn the night before. So it was probably a special dance only danced at Beltane. But it still felt more awkward than I would have expected. Just, yeah. Moraine and Lan watching the man be gentled, or was he just blocked till he was gentled in the tower? I would have thought, anyway. It was a real mood for them. Showed there was a real issue if they don't find who they're looking for before the Red Aja do. But such a distance from anyone else. They've just got this, they're so distant, and I think again that worked really well for their characters. I thought the gentling, I knew it was violent, or I imagined it being a violent act, as I'd expect, like the contradiction, I suppose, of gentling. I just thought it had to be done at the tower with more Aes Sedai present. I didn't think one or two or however many Leandrin would be able to do it on her own, or was allowed to do it on her own. I thought that they had to go back to the tower. And the last thing I'll probably talk about, I didn't really talk about Nynaeve and all that, but anyway, the biggest thing missing for me in this episode was Tom. I wonder when he's actually going to be introduced. I actually do get why he wasn't here. It's no need for another character to keep track of in the battle, and he wouldn't have added anything at this stage other than being there, another adult, and a different kind of way of dealing with the kids, the villagers, than Moraine and Lan. But it actually makes sense. It was a noticeable difference, which I think I was expecting, but and as I said, Nynaeve, the end of that episode, not knowing Nynaeve's fate, obviously that if you know the books, we know Nynaeve's fate, or we don't know exactly what happens to her though, so I'm looking forward to finding out what happens there. But yeah, devastating, and also really set up how Gwen reacted to that, and their relationship really did set up their future relationship quite well. So I won't say anything more about that so much, because I think that'll just happen over the next couple of episodes. So anyway, I really enjoyed watching this and sharing it with you. I can see it where people may have issues with it, but I think the actors as a whole, the actors were fantastic. So far, the changes have mostly made sense, or I can see how they will make sense in future episodes with changes being made, with further changes. I think obviously every time something is changed from the book, there is that ripple effect. I don't think anything has happened yet in my mind that will have any lasting repercussions that can't be tweaked. But I might be wrong, given I have only read the first 3 books. So I'd be interested. Don't tell me. Don't spoil it. But is there anything that you're really concerned about? Without telling me why, is there anything that's happened that you're really concerned about? Because I have seen a few little things around Gwen being to Vern and different things. Anyway, I really enjoyed it, and I trust this is going to be an enjoyable series to watch. I trust that the people involved know what they're doing, and yes, they're making changes from the books, but needed changes, I think, for the screen and to keep people interested who are new as well. Especially, I am really looking forward to the rest of this season playing out and seeing how they pull it all together. So I'm super excited. I'd be interested to know, of course, as always. I want this to be a conversation, so I can sit here and talk about what I noticed, but you let me know what was your standout scene. I honestly think my standout scene of the whole thing was between Nynaeve and Moraine. I just really loved that scene. What was your favourite scene? And are there any things that you're worried about, or anything that took you by surprise in a good way or a bad way? But let's focus on the positive. I think it's better to look at it in a positive way. And I am really, really thrilled that this is happening, and in such a good way as well. So that is me for today. I will hopefully over the course of this week, I will be posting episodes 1 through to 4, and hopefully I'll have 5 up as well before episode 6 becomes available. That is my plan for this week, given I've also got my study to do. We'll see how that goes, but just so you know, I'm here, I'm back, and very, very shortly I'll be starting my videos on the Shadow Rising, even if I haven't quite read as much as I would like. But there you go. I will catch you soon. like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you again for the next video on the Wheel of Time TV series. Bye.